While it's hard to pinpoint the exact feature of the class that's going to have the greatest impact on me, I think there's certainly one concept that I'm particularly fascinated with. And for me, it's this idea of intellectual integrity. One of the readings I think demonstrates this concept really well is Plato's Apology of Socrates. So, Socrates is famous for asserting that the unexamined life is not worth living. But in the reading, we see him exposing the fragility of unexamined beliefs in particular. So, I think this reading really stuck with me because it's just so relevant to the modern day. Socrates talks about the sophists, and while they are skilled with rhetoric, they don't actually have a solid framework for their beliefs. And his criticism of the sophists, as well as his accusers, it kind of mirrors our modern political discourse like really well. Um, and when I look at politics these days, I see a lot of weak arguments and a lot of finger pointing. This kind of rhetorical jousting of accusations. It's a tale as old as time, but what this reading taught me is that the solution to this like fruitless kind of discourse is really humility. So Socrates teaches us that the first step of this like intellectual integrity is actually admitting what you don't know. Now, this is the lesson that I want to take with me. And I'll admit, as someone who hates being wrong, and I mean, I really do not like being wrong, taking this lesson with me is not going to be easy, especially since our society seems to favor like sounding smart or at least appearing to be correct. But I don't think this popular mentality is really like, conducive to the pursuit of wisdom. So, because our society seems to favor rhetoric that like sounds convincing over like actual genuine inquiry, it's only led to more tension in the modern political discourse. And I think this really highlights the problem that you don't even need to be remotely correct in order to be persuasive. And Socrates actually points this out in his opening statement when he says, "So persuasively did they speak, and yet they have said, so to speak, nothing true." So immediately in that opening statement, he exposes the misconception that being correct is a like, sort of prerequisite for being persuasive. I think this exposes that fatal flaw of the sophists, and it's that like their skillful words are ultimately going to mask their weak arguments. Um, so that really just reminds me of like political debates these days. Um, you see a lot of times like, both sides are just desperate to force their opponent into a sort of like gotcha moment. A lot of people are just trying to catch like catchy sound bites rather than seeking out like genuine conversation. But during his trial, Socrates actually states, "I'm wiser than this human being, for probably neither of us knows anything noble, but he supposes he knows something when he does not know. While I, just as I do not know, do not even suppose that I do. I am likely to be a little bit wiser than he in this very thing, that whatever I do not know, I do not even suppose I know." So before his argument, Socrates makes it clear that he is open to the possibility of being wrong. He's not afraid to admit what he doesn't know. And I think that alone gives him a leg up over his opponent. So I think after reading this, it's clear to me that humility is actually the prerequisite for being correct. However, I do think it's important to note that that sense of humility has to come from both sides in order to have productive discourse. We see that Socrates actually approaches his accusations with humility and this openness to being wrong. And while he's able to cleverly flip the accusations of corrupting the youth and defaming the gods onto his accusers, his arguments just fall upon deaf ears. And he's ultimately found guilty and put to death. So that leads me to another lesson within this, and it's that maintaining that sense of intellectual integrity doesn't just require humility, it also requires like strong morals and actually a profound sense of courage. We see that Socrates valued intellectual honesty and freedom even more than his own life. So, even after reflecting on our group discussions that we've had throughout the semester, I saw how easy it is to want to just conform to the popular opinions. And even in our second conversation, when we were actually looking for points of contention, um, I was worried about picking a topic that would be deemed like too controversial. But actually, looking back on it now, like I wish I picked something even more controversial. But I think that shows that like even in such a low stakes environment, there's still that temptation to just want to play it safe. So I think that really speaks to Socrates' character, that he was able to stick to his principles even in the face of death. But I think that shows us how much we have to value that sense of intellectual integrity if we're to be good thinkers. So that's just one of the many lessons I've taken from this class. But as someone who's looking to pursue philosophy even further, I'm just truly grateful for the opportunity to expand on my previous conceptions of philosophy, as well as being introduced to new ones. So for that, thank you.